guys, it's Hannah here from Chaos and Calm, and today we are delighted to be working with the Teddy Hewitt Project, and we are working together to produce a range of resources to support you with your kiddies during lockdown and hopefully beyond as well. So stay tuned with us for some hopefully great ideas on different ways to keep your kids entertained and potentially learning. You never know your luck. Today we're going to be looking at doing a story string, which you can see demonstrated behind me here. Now of course we've had to tie ours so that you guys can see it at home, but for you at home, just grab yourself a bit of string, tie it between two chairs or two trees if you're outside. You can do this one wherever you feel comfortable, wherever you want to do it, and all you really need is some string and some pegs and a range of resources to suit whatever you're doing. So I am a big fan of killing as many jobs as I can with one stone. So this is a great way of integrating some of your children's physical programs that you need to be doing with them, as well as potentially some of their individual learning goals or some of their curriculum work. You can kind of mash it all together and kind of tick it all off the list at once. So think of your string and think about your child's mobility. You know, kids could do this in a walker, kids could do this obviously walking, crawling, creeping, you know, just adjust the height of the string. Equally, if you've got a child who is learning to cruise furniture, don't be afraid, you don't have to have the string. You could just spread it around your sofa or the surfaces that they're learning to cruise along and go from there. You can equally just stick the stuff on a wall, stick it on a window, whatever you can do. It's just a way of getting kids moving as well as being active in their learning. So a story string and its basic principle is a way of getting your kids to engage in whatever story you're reading. So today we've got the wonderful Tabby McTat by Julia Donaldson and Axel Schaefer, and you would simply take images or objects related to that story, put them on a string and get your child to follow along and to move along at each step of the story. But this is a totally flexible system. You can use this for literacy, you can use this for maths, communication, sensory engagement, whatever level your child is working at, you can adapt this. Even if you're just working on sitting with your child, if you're working on cross-leg sitting, reaching up, grasping at things, just stretch the string across in front of you. It doesn't need to be a whole room activity. So for those children that are working on a more sensory engagement level, you can simply hang some different textures, some different fabric for them to be grasping at, releasing, and just generally having a good feel of and playing with. You know, you can pull this out, it can go across their heads, they can feel it with their hands, they can have a go at pulling it down if they want to, however they want to engage with those things. And now's a great time as well just to talk about children that might have a visual impairment, okay? So you can see this is really great because it's already on that black background, so it helps everything to stand out. But for some children you might want to drape a cloth across so that it's more visually obvious to them where the string is. You might want to change the colour. For some children a black background is not the best. If you're going to be using pictures and things, you might want to use the colour background that suits your child's level of visual awareness the best. So perhaps some red, yellow, orange, whatever colour it is that you find works best for your kid. You might want to incorporate some sound into it. So you could always just have some bells at the start of your string and some bells at the end of your string, just for that child to be able to work out as they're going along where they are and make it that bit easier just to follow that string along. You could always put up some of the symbols that your child's learning to recognise, and you could ask them, "Where is the dog?" And they're going to work their way along that string until they find the right symbol. Okay, and then they can either take it down and give it to you, or it can just stay up there. It's totally up to you how you want to do it. Alternatively, for children who are working at the level of just beginning to make choices, perhaps they enjoy music, a bit of song, you can have their symbol cards up for them to go along and make a choice of which song you're going to sing next. Again, these could be objects, you know, it's whatever your child is using. If they're using objects of reference, you know, some children, they have a little fluffy pom-pom that they use for Incy Wincy Spider. That's what you could have hanging from the string, or a star shape. However you are engaging with your child at their communication level, try to hang those up from there. Now, obviously, you can't peg every object to a bit of string, but you can do things like using Ziploc bags to put objects in for them to come along and count. So this is one that I was doing for 5 little speckled frogs. So just getting the child to move along the string as you sing each number so that you can have a look at the frogs that are inside the bag. Of course, you can take it down, you can take them all out of the bag. You can make this as complicated as you want it to be, but just other ways of getting you to hang your... So the frogs that we just saw there are a great opportunity for early numeracy development and for us to use rhymes and songs to also motivate the children to engage in the activity. But if you've got a child who's working at a higher number level, then there's also great opportunities for that. So you could just have your number cards going along for them to follow in order. You could also mix your numbers up for them to come along and try and reorder. And you can also start to introduce basic math skills, addition and subtraction, using whatever method you're using at home. But I do know that a lot of the families that we work with are using Numicon. So one activity for that is to take your sum cards, and again, these are just written on a bit of paper, you know, no real prep needed as such, and then you can either use the Numicon tiles themselves, peg them up directly, or put them into the bags like we did with the frogs, or alternatively what I've got here are just some of the tiles that I've copied and laminated them. So you can give the child the sum, they could give you the sum, you just quickly write it on a bit of paper for them to come along and read, and then they can work their way along to try and solve that sum. So they need to pick out which tiles match the numbers. So they're looking for a 3 and a 6, and then they're going to put those together and solve the sum for you. So that's just a little way, and obviously you can do that with takeaway, you could do that with multiplication if you're at that level. You can adapt this as you need to. At a letter recognition stage, you know you're working on a particular sound, you could put your sound up at the beginning. You could then either have other letter sounds if that's what you're doing, but you could also have pictures or objects of a snake, of an octopus if you're doing the O sound, whatever it is that you're doing, you can adapt this, but you could also just have multiple letters and they're coming along and finding the letter that you ask them to. If you've got the child who is working at a stage of learning to recognise their own name, you know, you could have their name on a card and they've got to come along and choose that from a selection of names. Exactly the same with keywords. Once you're at a reading level, getting them to come along and to find, and you could have all letters with, or words, sorry, with the same letter, whatever level your child's working at. And again, you know, these are laminated from our files, but these can just be on scraps of paper. You don't need to do hours of prep for it. One thing that I will say to you that we learnt is that when you are cutting out your words, even if they're just on bits of paper, just try to leave yourself a bit of a gap at the top, because we found when we didn't, your peg, of course, was going across half your word, which isn't particularly helpful for the child who's trying to read them. So that's just something that we learn as we've gone along.